This podcast is brought to you by GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, protecting consumers and supporting the global gem and jewelry trade since 1931 through research, education, and laboratory services.
Welcome to the Rapaport Diamond Podcast, and now your host, Joshua Friedman.
Welcome to the Rapaport Diamond Podcast. I'm Joshua Friedman, Senior Analyst at Rapaport. My guest on this episode was Ari Jain, Chief Financial Officer at House of Diamonds, a diamond manufacturer and dealer based in New York. Ari was involved in his family's diamond business from an early age and even created a diamond pricing algorithm while a sophomore at Cornell University. On this podcast, he and I discussed this pricing mechanism, the US market, and why Indian diamond companies are opening offices in New York. Enjoy the episode. Ari Jain, it's great to have you on this podcast. Warm welcome to you. I hope you're well today. I'm excited about being able to discuss the industry and other matters with you on this podcast. Maybe just to begin with, you could tell me a little bit about yourself and also what is House of Diamonds? I know you're joining us from New York.
First and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I always have a wonderful time talking to you, and I have to compliment your work because it is very, very, very good. All the content you put out so much, and you put it out very well, very ethically, very honestly, and diligently. And I truly enjoy reading and watching all the content you produce.
Thank you. Very kind of you to say that.
So House of Diamonds is the world's leading only natural diamond and jewelry manufacturer. We boast offices in key global locations such as New York, Mumbai, Surat, and Hong Kong. So our specialization lies in larger diamonds, particularly 2-carat plus GIA certified diamonds, in both round and fancy shapes, as well as diamond melly and jewelry across all shapes and qualities. And the GIA certified goods, we do a very good job in pricing them. So our prices are updated bi-weekly using our pricing algorithms, and we make sure to provide customers with diamonds that are better than the certificates. Right now, we've seen a trend with companies kind of going for good certs, but the diamonds aren't as great. But we prioritize in showing our customers diamonds that are even better than the certificate implies.
I want to ask a little bit about that pricing algorithm in a few minutes. But first, I just want to hear about how you got into family business.
So I went to Cornell University for my undergrad. And at Dyson Business School, I wanted to try out and explore a bunch of different careers. So I gained tremendous experience through my time as founder and president of Cornell Marketing Organization. I also joined many finance and venture capital clubs. But at the end of the day, I spent a few summers at our family business office in New York. And I believed that the family business was the best way for me to express my personal creativity and leadership skills. And what isn't said enough is that our business, like the jewelry and diamond business, especially in a family business, it's a very fun profession. There's a lot of interaction with amazing people, customers. You get to see your family every day. And managing your own business, personally for me, is very enjoyable. And it's like growing your own baby. I've always been very growth oriented, and I love to see things grow.
Yeah, I'm talking of Cornell. When I was researching this, I stumbled across actually a very interesting interview with you in Cornell Daily Sun. There's a student newspaper there, which actually gave me a few ideas for things to ask you about. But a couple of things I wanted to focus on. How would you describe the business model of House of Diamonds?
So our business model is from rough to polish. We have manufacturing units in Surat and Mumbai. In Surat, we cut and polish our rough diamonds, and in Mumbai, we assemble our natural diamond jewelry. From Surat and Mumbai, almost all of the inventory comes to our New York or Hong Kong office, and from there, we help our customers through direct sales and or memo, and we are proud to say we serve customers in over 60 countries of the world.
So I said I would ask about that pricing algorithm, which admittedly I actually found out from reading in that piece in the Cornell newspaper. What is your pricing algorithm?
So it's a very intricate and refined system that we rely on to give our customers the best market prices every day. It makes suggestions to us daily, but at the end of the day, there is a human that has to approve the price changes. And it relies on many factors such as our past sales history, various market factors, diamond attributes such as cut, color, clarity, fluorescence, size, shape, and their correlation with price. And we use this algorithm to sell very efficiently, quickly, and to make our customers very happy with our price to quality ratio.
Does your pricing algorithm enable you to sell on average at a lower price than competitors?
Exactly. So we want to be at the best market price every day so we can promise that to our customers.
forgive me if you mentioned this already, your customers are mostly retailers, right? You're just selling directly to retailers.
Yeah.
Do you sell at all to other dealers?
Yes, we sell to wholesalers and retailers, but our priority has always been helping retailers. But sometimes our prices are really good and other dealers will also buy from us.
Okay. And how did that pricing algorithm come about? How was that a kind of an in-house invention, so to speak?
Exactly. So we had a team of artificial intelligence engineers and computer science engineers who spent around 2-3 years developing and refining this model using our 25 years of data and current day data. And it's still a work in progress, the algorithm. But I do think it has helped us tremendously, especially in this downward trending market. It's helped us navigate the process much more smoothly.
When did you start work on this?
So I started work on this sophomore year of Cornell very early. I started coming to the shows in high school, and every summer almost I'd be working with the family business.
Right. So it was while you were still a student that you started working on this algorithm.
Exactly, yes.
And what stage was AI at the time?
AI was quite developed. This isn't, I wouldn't say it's the most advanced AI algorithm, because for diamond prices, you don't necessarily need the most advanced AI, but it has elements of AI and it incorporates a lot of different characteristics to make pricing decisions.
Right. And how unique would you say? How does this differ from what other companies have?
I think it's very unique because it's a big automation. Before the process was, we would have to manually look at each diamond. So one person would have to keep analyzing its characteristics and see how the price is compared to the quality of the diamond. But now we have an automation that helps us look at 3,500 diamonds every day. And it makes suggestions to us whether we should lower or increase the price of something depending on the market. So it's become a really game changer for us because it allows us to adjust very quickly. In the past 3 years, I think there's been tremendous market changes. Prices drop a lot, and then sometimes prices went up a lot, and then they went down. So it's been extremely helpful for us.
I know that it's not been the easiest market in the last few months, although, as we discussed before, it seems like the dealers in the US seem to be a little bit happier than what we're hearing from the manufacturers in India. How is the retail side at the moment?
So at the right prices, US retail demand is still very much there, but it's very important to stay on top of your prices, adjust them constantly, and really service your customers well. So the retailers are still buying, but just at lower price points due to price pressures from various factors, such as a delay in engagements that Signet continuously cites, and a high interest rate environment, which limits consumer credit and therefore consumer spending. But retailers are still buying. You just have to give them the correct product at the right price. And I do see a big shift back to natural diamonds.
Right. That's something that has been mentioned by a few people over the last 5 months, I guess, since maybe January, February this year. Do you believe that that return to natural diamonds has been significant enough to really kind of satisfy the trade, to really calm the trade's nerves?
No, definitely not. So basically, this is how the lab-grown diamond market share went up like this. But I think now it's reached the pinnacle already, and now it's slightly going down, but it's going to go down dramatically as we approach the end of 2024 and we go into 2025. That being said, I do not think natural diamond dealers or retailers should be nervous at all, because if you look at economics and history, the future for lab-grown diamonds is not very bright. And I have friends that deal in lab-grown diamonds. We personally are one of the only companies that have never even touched lab-grown diamonds. We only do natural. But I've been telling them too that the future is very grim, because as you know, lab-grown color stones created a big impact too when they entered the market, but their prices now are, some of them sell for less than $1 a carat. And that's what happens when you create something that's mass produced. You can't sell something that's mass produced as luxury. And all the retailers are getting away with it, because the problem is that I feel bad for end consumers. They don't know the real price of lab-grown diamonds. They don't know the real cost of wholesale lab-grown diamonds, which I assume is $25 per carat, maybe even lower. At a recent show in Las Vegas, they were selling 5 carat plus each lab-grown diamonds for $99 a carat. And that was just what they were offering to sell it at. I'm sure you can negotiate with them too. So it just goes to show you how low is the price. I know retailers are selling the lab-grown diamonds for still very expensive amounts, but consumers can't be ignorant for so long. They will figure out the actual price. And when they figure out that the lab-grown diamond engagement ring they're looking to gift their wife, it's not worth even more than $25, there's going to be no romanticism left about this. And I personally think selling lab-grown diamonds at such exponential margins is very unethical, because the rate of margin retailers and wholesalers are charging for lab-grown diamonds is exponential. Whereas in natural diamonds, wholesalers might be charging from 2 to maybe maximum 10%. Lab grown diamond retailers are charging sometimes more than 1,000% margin, which I think is not right. Consumers can't stay ignorant for that long. Soon they will find out that the wholesale price is $25 per carat, and the romanticism of natural diamonds will be the only thing that can stay in the market.
What are you hearing from your customers about expectations for the holiday season?
Right now, I think customers are on vacation and they generally tend to be upbeat about the holiday season. Also, I think the downward price pressures are impacting the wholesalers more than the retailers. So the retailers are still selling quite well. At least in the US, they're selling well. They might be selling different products like lab grown or color stones, but they are selling quite well. And I personally think that the holiday season is going to be a positive surprise. I think right now it's a summertime, so it's very slow. And many people in the industry tend to live in extremes. So if the market is bad, they believe it's going to be a doomsday scenario. And if the market is good, as we saw 2-3 years ago, people think the prices will never stop going up. And they'll refuse to sell diamonds because they think the prices are going to keep rising every week and week. So I personally believe the market has overcorrected recently. And the natural diamond prices right now are extremely low. Like there's 1 carat, nice quality diamonds like JK, SI2, which are nice to the naked eye. You can't call them good quality, but to the naked eye, a 1 carat JK SI2 fancy shape, they're selling for less than $1,000, which is, I believe, extremely low. And I think the market will see the value of these natural diamonds, which have rarity, over lab grown diamonds. I see the prices going back up by 2025. And I think a lot of dealers, including ourselves, who are selling very cheap right now, might come to regret it by the time the holiday season comes around. I think we can see some shortages.
This podcast is brought to you by GIA. Consumer trust is vital to the global gem and jewelry industry from mine to market. Through research, education, instrument development, and independent gem grading and identification, GIA is dedicated to protecting consumers, ensuring their trust in gems and jewelry, and helping the industry thrive. Visit GIA.edu for more information.
How have consumer prices been affected by the declines in wholesale prices? How direct is that impact?
So that's a very, very good question. On the lab grown side, even though the prices on the wholesale side have plummeted, they have gone down so much. Like I couldn't have even imagined how much they've gone down. The retailers are still selling them expensive. The retailers are still selling lab grown diamonds as expensive. And I think that's partially because they know if they sell it too cheap, they will destroy the whole value of lab grown diamonds. Whereas on the natural diamond side, I think when natural diamonds go down in price, the retailers kind of pass the bargain down to their customers because it's higher amounts. And for natural diamonds, for example, if someone's selling a $30,000 diamond, a retailer might put like a 10 to 20% markup on it and then sell it. But as far as lab grown diamonds go, I think the retailers are just getting a better wholesale price for it, but they're not passing the savings down to their consumers. There are a few places, like for example, Walmart, that are selling lab grown diamonds at really good prices compared to other retailers. But because of the perception of Walmart, they're not selling as well, but it's the same thing they're selling. Very high quality lab grown diamonds for a very low price. And I think if anyone's buying a lab grown diamond, why not buy it at the same price from Walmart?
Right. So I wanted to ask about something that we touched on before, which was that the general mood in the US dealer market has kind of been okay, whereas colleagues in India seem to be struggling a lot. Do you agree with that presentation of the situation? And what's your explanation for that?
Yes, I definitely agree. I think Indian manufacturers are having a harder time than US dealers, but even the US dealers are struggling. And one potential reason for that is a lot of Indian manufacturers rely on debt. And debt in a downward price trending market is very difficult to deal with. And at the same time, retailers are relying more and more on memo because they would rather memo than buy something and the price decreases, a couple of weeks later. So the US dealers are less debt reliant, so they're better equipped to deal with falling prices. They don't have any debt obligations. They're used to the memo business model, whereas the Indian manufacturers and companies aren't really used to it, but even they are starting it. So a lot of Indian manufacturers are opening offices here to combat this. But at the end of the day, they do have debt obligations. So they can't really sell on memo as well because they need to pay their debt obligations, whereas US dealers don't have any debt obligations.
Right. So the US dealers really have the luxury of being able to nimble about what and how much they buy.
US dealers are much better to work with for US retailers because they aren't as time sensitive as Indian manufacturers. So We, for example, will let customers take their time on stones they have on memo, which if anyone's dealt with an end consumer, it takes time. You really need to be patient for a retailer to sell a $20,000 plus diamond. The customer is going to think about it for a couple of weeks and then they might make their decision. And that's where the US dealers really come into play, because the US dealers have that type of patience because they generally don't have debt. And that's why I think they're much easier to work with. And that's why the US dealers are doing better right now.
Is it correct to frame this as a US versus India thing, or is it more accurate that it's dealers versus manufacturers? I know there aren't that many manufacturers now in the US, but is it really about geographical differences, or is it just two different types of businesses?
I think it's two different types of businesses. It's dealers versus manufacturers. And more important, it's not even dealers versus manufacturers. I think the biggest difference is debt. Whoever has debt and the prices are going down, they are either going to have to sell very cheap to raise liquidity, and they're going to have to sell very quickly. They simply can't do memo. If you need money, you need to sell on the table, and you need the money in your bank.
Where does House of Diamonds stand in this? I know, do you view yourself as more of a dealer or more of a manufacturer?
We're a manufacturer and dealer, but we have no debt obligations. So we kind of pride ourselves on that because we give our customers the best prices, but we will also be very patient with them. Like if they need more time on their memo, we won't rush them. We'll tell them to take their time. And we value the customer relationship much more than whether the diamond sells or not. We want to provide them the best service so they keep coming back to us.
Right. And going back to the issue of lab-grown diamonds, you mentioned the sharp decline in prices of synthetics, but still, whenever I speak to people in the industry, they say that there's a great need to market natural diamonds and distinguish it from synthetics. Do you think the industry is doing that well enough now, and do you think there's more that it needs to do?
I think the best way to market natural diamonds is by saying the truth about lab-grown diamonds. Until we make the cost of lab-grown diamonds public to the end consumer, which I assume is $25 per carat, maybe less, that's the best way to get natural diamonds back on track. Because it's simply not romantic to gift your wife a $25 engagement ring. Just by basic economics, we can assume the cost and price of wholesale lab-grown diamonds will continue to fall further. Eventually, it will become $5 a carat. And again, if we look at history as a guide to predict lab-grown diamond prices, the lab-grown colorstone market is a great area to study. And these products, again, are being sold for pennies per carat, less than $1 per carat. Lab-grown diamonds are going to follow the same trend. But the main thing that I've talked to many people about is until the end consumer finds out that the value of what they're gifting their wife or spouse is so low that they wouldn't even bother to lose it, I don't think how anyone can buy lab-grown diamonds. And if they know about the exponential margins they're buying it, I think they would be very turned off. If they're buying something that's worth $25 a carat wholesale for around $2,000, I think that type of margin is unethical, and I don't know how any consumer can digest that. And I don't know what the point is to buy something that's worth $25 a carat and gift it to your wife. There's no significance of that. And me personally, I still would rather between a lab-grown diamond or moissanite for my wife. I would pick moissanite because it's still rare. Lab-grown diamond prices, we don't know the end of how cheap it will become. The technology keeps getting better, so the cost per carat keeps going down. So there's no rarity to it, there's no scarcity to it. I still don't understand how it's still being marketed. I think at the end of the day, it's just the fact that the consumer just doesn't know. They don't know the price, but I'm not bothered by that. I'm sure time will tell them the price. When they go back to the retail stores and try to sell or upgrade, they will figure out that these retailers are giving me $0 back for this lab-grown diamond ring, and I spent a couple $1,000s on it. And I think that's when they return back to the retail store is also a big point. They'll pivot to natural, because even if they buy something small, it retains its value very well. Even if they are paying 25% more than the wholesale price, at least you can pass down value that way. If someone buys a $30,000 natural diamond, it's something significant to pass down to your children. And if they bought for $30,000, they'll have something worth $28,000 wholesale that they can pass down for generations and generations. No one is ever going to pass down lab-grown diamond rings, and I bet people won't even be worried if they lose it. So where is the significance of a product if people aren't worried about losing it? If there's no actual value about it because of such a low price, then I honestly don't see how people are still buying it. I think it's just because the retailers are still charging very high amounts for it. They're not charging close to the wholesale price for it.
But in the same time, when you have a US mid-market that is on a tight budget, you can understand why something that's selling for 10% of the price of a natural diamond is doing well at the moment.
I do, but I would suggest consumers to buy something like Colorstone instead. We also deal in Colorstones through a sister company called Thigh Gems, and that market has been booming. And when it comes to rubies, sapphires, green emeralds. This market is really booming because I think customers still want something rare. And a lot of customers have started to understand lab grown diamonds simply aren't rare. So if you have a lower price point budget, why not buy something that's actually precious rather than buy something that has zero value as soon as you step out of the door? You give them the money. Signet has warnings on all their lab grown diamond invoices now that beware, this product does not hold its value. So why not rather buy something that actually holds its value? I do think people should spend their money wisely. I don't think they should pay thousands of dollars for something that's worth only $25. I think that's shooting themselves in the foot. I think the biggest change is also retailers. Their cash flow is severely limited right now. They're making really exponential margins, but the total amount of money that's coming into their cash flow is being severely limited. They still have super high rents. They're not going to be able to survive just selling lab grown. And I think it kills the whole story of romanticism if you're selling something that's worth so little.
Understand. And I wanted to dwell on a few other trade issues, some of the things that are going on right now. You mentioned this before, that the trend for Indian companies to open offices in the US to get closer to the customer. That's been going on for quite a while now, right?
Yeah.
That trend.
2-3 years.
Is that the reason that it gives an opportunity to compete with other dealers on when selling to the retailer?
Yeah, that's a big reason. Also, a big reason is due to the slowness of China and Hong Kong. Before, a lot of Indian manufacturers would have their key offices in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong used to be a very important market because Hong Kong has a lot of COD buyers.
Cash on delivery, right?
Exactly. So instead of memo, the Hong Kong and China buyers, they would see a diamond they like and they would buy it. They would take the risk and they would buy it, rather than the US dealer mentality where they memo it, and if their customer buys it, then they buy it. So this used to be a key market. It used to provide a lot of good cash flow to the Indian manufacturers. But now the Hong Kong, China sales have gone down dramatically. So a lot of Indian manufacturers, which had their bases in Hong Kong and China, have moved to either Dubai, Antwerp, or New York because they need a base to generate revenue. While the market is bad, they need a base to generate revenue. And thankfully, the US is one of the key markets that, despite a troubling global economy, it continues to do well.
And I was speaking to one of the large Indian manufacturers actually at the JCK show last month. I asked him, why don't you have an office in New York? And he said, we're a family business and we want everyone to be in India. Is that a common sentiment?
I know the manufacturer you're talking about. They're a very respected and good people, but I don't think that's a common sentiment. I think they're rare in that mentality. And I think the way they deal with it is they sell at better prices, so they don't have to compete in the US. So a lot of the Indian manufacturers that are opening offices in New York, their prices tend to be higher than the Indian manufacturers that don't have offices in New York. So it's really just a strategic decision, or like a game theory decision. So the manufacturer you talked about, their strategy is, hey, we're just going to sell a bit cheaper and we're not going to have to pay the expenses of a New York office and deal with memo and all these difficulties that come with the US market as well. We'll just sell cheaper. Whereas a lot of the Indian manufacturers, they have to recoup their cost of running and opening a US office and dealing with memo, so they'll charge higher prices. So I think that's generally the case. If an Indian manufacturer has a New York office as well, price won't be as good as someone who only has Indian office.
Right. And to clarify, the companies that do have open offices in the US are able to sell at the higher prices because being there enables them to offer a service to the retailer that they wouldn't be able to offer. So the memos and just having the goods nearby, I guess. What exactly is that added value?
Exactly. I think it's a proximity to the customer. So whether like a dealer or a broker can come see their diamonds at their office and actually analyze them and make a decision in person after seeing the diamond on their hand, that makes it much easier for a dealer or wholesaler to decide whether to buy it or not. And the biggest reason, again, is memo. So a lot of retailers are tending to rely exclusively on memo now, especially for larger stones like 2 carat plus. So yeah, these Indian manufacturers that have opened offices here, they are offering that service, which retailers are happy to pay. They will pay a couple extra points to safeguard them, So if the customer buys it, they buy it. And if the customer doesn't buy it, they don't buy it.
And so just before we finish, just two very final and short points. Firstly, one of the trends we've seen this year is that the SIs and lower clarity diamonds have been performing better than the VS and higher. So my question is whether you still see that being the case at the moment. And secondly, how have the sanctions on Russian diamonds affected your business?
SIs are doing very well. Even in the recent price list changes, I don't think you guys touched SIs too much. And this is because SIs are very affordable right now. And in a high interest rate economy, consumers are very price sensitive. And SI goods are beautiful to the naked eye, and they provide a very good size to value ratio for consumers. And that's a trend we've seen in the US, where consumers want big diamonds. And the best way to get big diamonds that are also rare and natural is to go for SI quality. Because a lot of these SI1s, SI2s, they will be 100% eye clean, and consumers are more than happy to invest their money in them to get a bigger size. As far as the Russian sanctions go, I think a big reason for why, if you remember a couple of years ago, the market was doing really well. Then all of a sudden, the Russian-Ukraine war happened. And I think the market truly pivoted at that time, and the prices started going down because I believe Alrosa started overproducing once the war started to provide maybe financing for the war. And that created a lot of excess supply in the market. And as far as the sanctions go, it's impacted us because it severely limits the rough that we have access to. But that being said, I think there are signs that the sanctions aren't being implemented well, because as we see, Alrosa is producing more than ever, and America and Europe together are one of the biggest markets in the world. So where is all this overproduction from Alrosa going? Where is it going? If it was truly not getting into the US, I think the market would be way healthier. It just doesn't make logical sense to me. If Alrosa is producing more than ever, then how is it so that the goods aren't getting into the biggest market in the world?
I had the same question myself. It can't all be going to China because China's not buying very much. It can't all be going to India because that market's not big enough yet. For me, I still unanswered questions. Ari, on that note, I wanted to thank you for joining us on this podcast. It's been a very fascinating discussion. I've learned a lot about a few issues I hadn't quite thought about closely enough, particularly that issue of Indian companies, why and what benefits it brings for them to have offices in the US. So, Ari, thank you very much. It's been great to have you on the podcast.
I really had a great time talking to you, and I always have a great time talking to you. And I think you're fabulous at what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very kind of you. This podcast is brought to you by GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, protecting consumers and supporting the global gem and jewelry trade since 1931 through research, education, and laboratory services. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rapaport Diamond Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to get future episodes. For more discussion, news, and analysis about the diamond industry, you can visit rapaport.com, follow Rapaport Group on Instagram, and follow Rapaport on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We also invite you to watch our weekly market comment videos on our YouTube channel.